I decided that my ironing board made for a pretty boring background in my crafting videos, so to visually spruce everything up, I'm going to be weaving a mat to put on top of my boring old ironing board cover. I spun this wool yarn myself a while ago using a 4-ply technique that creates a sort of braided effect when finished. My workspace is quite cramped, so I didn't have enough room to film getting my rigid heddle loom set up. I chose some fingering weight wool yarn that I had left over in my stash to use as my warp, so it would be almost invisible against the weft in the final product, because I want to keep the main focus on my hand spun yarn. Here I am using scrap acrylic yarn to spread out the warp, and it will also hold the woven yarn in place for finishing later. And now we're getting started with my working yarn. Weaving is very repetitive. Honestly, years ago when I was younger, I never imagined myself wanting to pass a stick back and forth between my hands over and over and over. But it turns out that it's very meditative. When I get into the groove, time flows by and it doesn't feel tedious at all. Plain weave is my favorite because it's the easiest to let my mind wander while working. The colors are coming together in a way that makes me think of a blended color pencil drawing with lots of visual texture. Since I don't want a fringe on this, I'm using a zigzag stitch on my sewing machine and very carefully sewing the yarn next to my beginning scrap yarn. On the other side, I had a lot of warp left over, so I decided to continue weaving with some other wool yarn that I had in my stash. But for this project, I'm also doing a zigzag stitch next to my holding rows to secure the ends. After I removed my scrap yarn, I ran the fabric through my serger to finish the edges. Here we are, all finished. It's decently thick and will make a wonderful backdrop for future projects.